They say you can tell a lot about your worth to people by the gifts they give you. Well, on my 32nd birthday, my family gave me a $20 coupon for a discount store called Bargain Haven tucked neatly into a greasy envelope, then laughed like it was the punchline of some grand inside joke. We were at the Sterling, the kind of place where the chandeliers look like they could pay off someone's mortgage, and the wine list reads like a collector's catalogue. My brother Liam was already 3 whiskies deep, slurring congratulations for finally earning a little help. "You'll need that coupon, Ethan," he chuckled, swirling the amber liquid around like he was the king of Wall Street. "God knows you're always broke." My father, Nathan, barely looked up from his phone, the glow of a finance app reflecting off his cold, grey eyes. "Be practical, my mother," Margot chimed in, giving me that tight, pitying smile she reserved for lost causes. "We thought you'd appreciate something useful." I clenched the cheap paper in my hand, the ink smudging against my sweaty fingers. It wasn't the value that burned me, it was the message. You're not one of us. You're the charity case. Funny thing was, they had no idea who I really was anymore. Across the table, Victoria, my golden sister, heir apparent, corporate darling, grinned wide enough to show teeth. "If you ever need a job," she said with a wink, "I could pull some strings. Maybe find you an assistant role at Sullivan Enterprises. Filing papers, fetching coffee. You know, real work." I almost laughed. Real work? I had spent the last decade working while they were busy playing heirs and heiresses. I wasn't scraping by in a shoebox apartment like they imagined. I had been building quietly, methodically, an empire none of them even knew existed. Tomorrow, the real punchline would land. I pushed back my chair, setting down my untouched glass of wine, and tossed a crisp $200 bill onto the table. "Here," I said, flashing them a smile sharp enough to cut glass. "A little tip for the staff, God knows. The coupon won't cover much." And then I walked out of the Sterling into the cold Manhattan night, leaving the laughter and the false family warmth behind me for good. They thought the joke was on me. They had no idea. Tomorrow, they'd find out exactly who they'd been laughing at. You don't just wake up one day and become invisible. It happens slowly, one forgotten invitation at a time, one backhanded compliment, one door closed when you needed it most. I should have seen it coming the day my father, Nathan Sullivan, sat me down in his office at Sullivan Enterprises. It wasn't a conversation. It was a dismissal. "You're not cut out for this world, Ethan," he said without even blinking. Business, in his mind, was bloodline, not brain power. Victoria had the bloodline. Liam had the privilege. Me? I had ambition, and apparently that was a liability. I can learn, I had said once, foolish and young and hungry. He laughed, actually laughed. "Stick to small dreams, son. Leave the real work to the winners." So I did what any so-called loser would do. I vanished. I walked away without slamming a door, without burning a bridge. But I took one thing with me, my anger. At first, I scraped by. Coffee runs, data entry, financial analysis for companies no one had ever heard of. No safety nets, no family name to flash like a platinum card. But every dollar I earned, I reinvested. Every mistake I made, I learned from. While Liam posted selfies from ski resorts and Victoria clinked glasses at black tie galas, I studied the market like a religion. I didn't buy shiny stocks like they did. I bought small, unknown, hidden gems everyone else was too arrogant to notice. Brick by brick, portfolio by portfolio, I built something they couldn't see, a financial empire stitched together in silence, masked behind shell companies and offshore accounts. 5 years ago, I started quietly acquiring tiny slices of Sullivan Enterprises. Tiny enough no one cared, tiny enough to stay invisible. Until 3 months ago when those tiny pieces added up to 52% ownership. Funny, isn't it? They kicked me out of the kingdom, and I bought the castle behind their backs. They thought I was broke. They thought I was desperate. They thought I was gone. They had no idea that the ghost they had erased from their family albums had come back. And this time, I wasn't knocking at the door. I was holding the deed. There's a moment, right before a storm breaks, where everything goes still. The air holds its breath. The ground tenses. The sky forgets how to blink. That's where I was, standing on the balcony of my penthouse, staring down at Manhattan, a glass of bourbon sweating in my hand. The city buzzed under me, blissfully unaware that by morning the Sullivan family would be history. Sophie had timed everything down to the minute. Sophie, my quiet hurricane, the one person who saw through the smoke and mirrors of the Sullivan dynasty years ago and chose to bet on me instead. While Victoria and Liam floated on family money and Nathan built his empire on inherited land, Sophie and I built something real, brick by invisible brick. At exactly 6:00 a.m. tomorrow, the official announcement would hit. New majority shareholder, Ethan Sullivan, Victoria Sullivan, removed from vice president position. We'd spent months setting the trap, weaving through legal red tape like it was child's play. Shell companies, nominee directors, offshore accounts, you name it, we spun it. Victoria never saw the storm clouds gathering over her perfect little world because she never thought to look down. I smiled into my bourbon. Arrogance always makes the best camouflage. The plan itself wasn't complicated. Simple brutality masked by layers of elegance. Step 1, acquire 52% ownership quietly through shell acquisitions. Step 2, call an emergency board meeting, one they couldn't ignore. Step 3, serve them the coldest reality check of their lives in front of the entire executive team. The real art was in the details. Every email had been drafted, every shareholder notified, every media outlet lined up for the morning blast. When Victoria sashayed into Sullivan Tower tomorrow, she would still think she was Queen Bee, until the front desk redirected her, until her access badge turned red, until she saw my name, Ethan Sullivan, etched across the glass doors of the executive wing. I wanted her to walk in with her head high, full of power, dripping in smug confidence. I wanted her to fall from the highest peak. At 11:45 p.m, Sophie texted me, "Everything's green. No leaks. You're clear." I leaned against the railing, letting the wind carve lines across my face. Somewhere out there, Victoria was probably asleep under 600 thread count sheets, dreaming smug little dreams of quarterly bonuses and gala speeches. She wouldn't know it yet, but tonight was her last night in power. You might think I would feel triumphant, exhilarated, vindicated. I didn't. All I felt was stillness. The kind of stillness that comes not from peace, but from the sharp, vibrating silence before an impact. This wasn't just about business. This wasn't about stock shares or boardrooms. This was about every backhanded insult Margot wrapped in motherly advice. Every time Nathan told me to be realistic while handing Liam a blank check. Every dinner where Victoria toasted herself and forgot my name halfway through. This was about the cheap coupon tucked into my birthday card like a consolation prize. It wasn't revenge. It was reclamation. They didn't want me at their table. Fine. I bought the whole damn building instead. At midnight, Sophie showed up with the final folder. She didn't say much, just handed it to me across the polished marble kitchen counter. "Your move," she said simply. I flipped through it. Pages of signatures, legalese, airtight clauses. One more signature. One more line drawn in blood and ink. I signed it without hesitation. The pen glided across the page like it had been waiting for this moment as long as I had. Sophie didn't congratulate me. She didn't need to. She just smiled. A quiet, knowing smile, and raised a glass. To ghosts, she said. I raised mine back. To ghosts who learned how to haunt properly. Hours later, lying in bed, the city lights flickering across the ceiling like nervous fireflies, I thought back to a different night. 10 years ago. Walking out of Sullivan Tower, my resume in my hand, rejection burning in my gut. Nathan's words echoing behind me, "You don't belong here, Ethan." He was right. I didn't belong in the small, caged world he built. I belonged outside of it, above it, beyond it. And tomorrow, for the first time, they would finally see me clearly, not as the afterthought, not as the disappointment, not as the failure, but as the man who buried them. I barely slept. When the first crack of dawn slashed across the horizon, I was already dressed, dark suit, no tie, sleeves rolled just high enough to show I wasn't playing anymore. I slid the final document into my leather briefcase, tucked my father's old cufflinks into the pocket, a little souvenir for irony's sake. And with the calm of a man who knew the world was about to tilt in his favour, I stepped into the elevator, down, 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 into the battlefield they thought was theirs, until today. If there's an art to destruction, it lies in walking into the room like you have nothing to prove, because you don't. At exactly 8:00 a.m., I stepped into the lobby of Sullivan Tower. The security guards, the receptionists, even the baristas at the overpriced coffee stand, they all paused mid-motion, unsure whether they should recognize me or treat me like another suit in the endless river of corporate America. I didn't wait for permission. I moved through the turnstiles with a badge they hadn't seen before, an executive clearance card, one swipe, one soft beep, and the world shifted. I didn't smile. Smiles were for after. The executive conference room was on the top floor, an architectural cathedral of glass, chrome, and hollow legacy. I pushed open the double doors without knocking. Victoria was already there. She sat at the head of the table, latte in hand, scrolling through her phone like a queen surveying her kingdom. Her blonde hair was coiled into a perfect twist. Her suit screamed old money and PR photo ops. Around her sat the bored faces lined with privilege and fatigue, the same men and women who once shook my father's hand and pretended loyalty while counting their stock options. The room buzzed with small talk and caffeine until they saw me, until silence dropped like a guillotine. Victoria looked up, one perfectly arched eyebrow lifting. "You're not supposed to be here, Ethan," she said, her voice dripping casual disdain. "This is a private meeting," I smiled, slow and dangerous. "Funny," I said, tossing a thick folder onto the table, "because I'm the one who called it." The CFO frowned, flipping open the first page. His eyebrows shot up so fast I thought they'd launch off his face. Victoria's smile faltered. "What is this?" she demanded, reaching for the documents with fingers that shook just slightly. "Ownership certificates, voting rights, new executive mandates, all stamped, all legal, all inevitable. I now own 52% of Sullivan Enterprises," I said, my voice calm, almost bored, effective immediately. The room froze. Victoria blinked, slow and disbelieving, like she'd misheard the rules of her own game. "You can't," she spat. "This is my company." I leaned forward, elbows on the gleaming mahogany table. "No, Victoria," I said. "This was our company. You just forgot the old part a long time ago." Nathan stormed into the room 5 minutes later, tie askew, rage dripping from him like acid rain. Margot and Liam trailed behind, whispering furiously. What's the meaning of this? Nathan barked. I didn't bother standing. I simply nodded toward the pile of documents in front of him. He snatched them up, scanning fast, his face shifting from anger to confusion to a pale, gutted sort of horror. This is a hostile takeover, he hissed. This is treason. I shrugged. It's called business, I said. You should know. You taught me. Victoria was on her feet now, voice rising, desperate. You think a few pieces of paper can erase everything. You think you can just walk in here and steal what's rightfully mine. I stood too, slow and deliberate. You didn't notice, I said softly, but you already lost it a long time ago. The board shifted uneasily. Whispers laced the corners of the room like smoke. A few leaned toward Victoria. A few leaned toward me. Most leaned toward survival. That's the thing about power. It's only real if others believe you have it. And right now, all they saw was a young man who had walked through the front door and turned their world upside down with a signature. Victoria opened her mouth to argue again, but Sophie stepped into the room. Clipboard in hand, calm as a guillotine. The media statement is ready, she said to me, loud enough for everyone to hear. Press embargo lifts in 30 minutes. Shareholder update will post immediately after. Victoria's mouth snapped shut. She knew what that meant. Once the public announcement hit, it would be over. No PR stunt could spin it. No desperate board vote could reverse it. It would be history, permanent, undeniable. Nathan slammed his fist against the table. You're making a mistake, Ethan. You're destroying the family legacy. I looked him dead in the eye. No, I said. You destroyed it. I'm just the one writing the final chapter. Victoria's hands trembled against the chair back. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in her eyes. Real fear. Not the kind she reserved for losing followers on social media. Not the kind she fake cried about during charity galas. This was the fear of irrelevance, of being nobody, exactly the way she had treated me for decades. The CFO cleared his throat awkwardly. As per the new shareholder directive, he said, unable to meet Victoria's gaze, Miss Sullivan, you are hereby removed from your position as Vice President, effective immediately. Victoria swayed like she'd been punched. No, she whispered. I watched her carefully. Would she scream, cry, throw a tantrum? No, she did something worse. She sat down, slow, defeated, humiliated, and stared at the folder in front of her like it was her death warrant. Nathan tried one last move. Fine, he growled. You want the company? Take it! But you won't survive without us. Without my connections, my reputation. I chuckled. Your reputation, I said, savouring the moment. Nathan, your reputation is why the shareholders begged for new blood. You made this easy, Margot sniffed loudly, dabbing her eyes with a monogrammed napkin. Liam just stood there, wide-eyed and useless as ever, clutching his phone like maybe if he Googled hard enough, he could find a way out. He couldn't. Nobody could. I leaned forward one last time, letting the words land like a blade. This isn't just a takeover. This is a reckoning. I let that sink in. Then, with Sophie by my side, I turned and walked out of the conference room. No one followed. No one spoke. The heavy doors swung closed behind me with a soft click, sealing the end of the Sullivan dynasty. And the beginning of mine. The funny thing about endings is how quiet they are. No thunder, no fireworks. Just the hollow click of a door closing and the long, steady sound of silence settling in. That's how the Sullivan reign ended. One soft click. One broken dynasty. 2 days after the takeover, Victoria tried to fight back. Of course she did. She stormed into Sullivan Tower, demanded emergency meetings, called in old favours, tried to rally loyalists. But loyalty is a currency, and Victoria had spent hers long ago. Without a title, without a paycheck, without Nathan's protection, she was just another out-of-touch socialite screaming into the void. I heard through Sophie that she tried launching a lawsuit. It fizzled faster than a wet match. There was no ground to stand on. Every transaction was legal. Every document airtight. Victoria Sullivan became a headline for 24 hours, then a cautionary footnote. A story no one cared to finish reading. Nathan didn't fare much better. He tried bluffing, threatening to pull old connections, dragging my name through the mud. But the world had changed. The old boys' clubs he belonged to had crumbled under their own scandals years ago. I made sure the press had everything they needed: mismanaged funds, shady land deals, quiet settlements he thought had stayed buried. He thought he'd trained me to be weak. Instead, he trained me to know exactly where the bodies were buried. When the sec came knocking, Nathan's empire collapsed faster than his pride. He settled quietly, sold off assets, disappeared into a gated retirement village in Florida where no one remembered his name or cared. Margot followed him, of course, still clutching her pearls, still whispering about family loyalty like it was a coupon she could redeem for relevance. I didn't hear from them again. Not that I was listening. And Liam? Liam never stood a chance. Without Dad's credit cards, without Victoria's PR machine to make him look important, he was just Liam. A boy in a man's suit, adrift in a world that didn't bend for him anymore. Last I heard, he was trying to become an influencer, posting shirtless selfies in Bali, begging for sponsored protein shakes. Sad, predictable. I could have helped him, but he never asked. And I stopped offering. As for me, I didn't throw a victory party. I didn't pop champagne. I didn't even take a day off. I rebuilt, brick by brick. Sullivan Enterprises became something new, something real. Gone were the flashy board meetings full of yes men and country club relics. In their place, visionaries, scrappers, people who understood the value of hard work and second chances. We expanded into sectors Victoria once laughed at: tech startups, clean energy, microfinancing. Within a year, Sullivan Enterprises posted its highest profits in 2 decades. And for the first time, my name wasn't a joke whispered behind closed doors. It was the signature at the bottom of every major deal. The one that mattered. One night, about 6 months after it all went down, Sophie and I sat on the balcony of my penthouse, the city buzzing below us like a restless ocean of light. She poured 2 glasses of wine, handed me one. "You ever miss them?" she asked quietly. I thought about it, about birthday parties spent invisible, about graduation ceremonies skipped, about the endless little humiliations disguised as love. "No," I said, and meant it. The truth was, the family I had fought for all those years didn't exist. It never had. It was a fantasy, a castle made of fog and wishful thinking. All that was left now was me, and the empire I had built with my own bloody, calloused hands. And Sophie, who had stood beside me when no one else even looked. Maybe that's what real family was, the people who see you when you're invisible, the ones who don't laugh at your dreams. Later that night, as I stood alone at the glass railing, looking out over the endless maze of Manhattan, my phone buzzed. A name flashed on the screen: Nathan Sullivan. I let it ring, twice, 3 times. I didn't answer. Some ghosts aren't worth resurrecting. Instead, I slipped the phone into my pocket and lifted my glass toward the night sky. To everything I had lost, to everything I had won, to the battles they never even saw coming, and to the man they could never again pretend didn't exist. Story 2, I never thought I'd be that guy posting on Reddit, but here we are. I'm Evan, 34 years old, and my hands are literally trembling as I type this out. I've lurked for years, thinking, wow, people's lives are crazy, but now it's my turn to be the cautionary tale. Some backstory first. I met Maya, 31 now, about 4 years ago through mutual friends. She had this spark, smart, funny, and so kind, you almost couldn't believe it. We got married 2 years later, bought a modest little house last year, and now she's 7 months pregnant with our first kid, a girl. That house? It's old, sure. The kitchen's outdated, there's a weird creak in the hallway, and the backyard's basically a dust bowl, but it's ours. We didn't get any help, no parents chipping in, no secret inheritance, just sweat equity and a lot of weekends with busted knuckles and paint-stained clothes. Maya said she loved it. She even picked out the pale yellow paint for the nursery herself. I believed her. Then came the baby shower. We decided to host it at our place. It felt symbolic, starting our family in the home we built together. Maya's mum, Cynthia, wasn't exactly thrilled. She suggested we rent a venue, using that oh-so-subtle tone she reserves for things she thinks are beneath her. We ignored her. I spent the whole week getting ready. Repainted the living room, fixed the porch steps, even installed new light fixtures that cost more than I'd like to admit. I wanted everything to be perfect. The morning of the shower, I was already drenched in sweat setting up folding chairs we borrowed from Maya's cousin. Our AC is hit or miss, and naturally today it decided to be mostly miss. Cynthia showed up an hour early, dragging along her church friend, the kind of woman who clutches her pearls like it's an Olympic sport. They prowled through our house, taking it all in with tight smiles and judgmental glances. I was adjusting chairs when Cynthia cornered me, literally backed me against the wall, her voice sticky sweet and way too loud for comfort. "Evan," she said, flashing a fake smile. My daughter made a huge mistake marrying someone who can't even afford a proper home. Thank heavens Darren is still around for emotional support. I froze. Did she really just say that? In front of her friend? At our baby shower? I glanced at Maya, hoping for something. Defense, outrage, even awkwardness. Instead, I saw her across the room with her sister Tara, giggling, and my heart sank. I nodded stiffly, excused myself, and went to fetch more chairs. Because what else was I supposed to do? 'Cause a scene at my own baby shower? Right. The rest of the afternoon was a blur of Cynthia's passive-aggressive digs, stories about Darren's fancy new 5-bedroom house in the suburbs, casual questions about whether Maya was sure she wanted the baby's nursery to be that tiny room. I kept myself busy serving food and refilling punch. Nobody really talked to me except Tara, who gave me a look that screamed, "I'm sorry you're stuck here." When the last guest left, I was picking up crumpled napkins off the floor while Maya sat on the couch opening gifts. I asked her point blank if she heard what her mother said. Maya sighed like I was exhausting her. "Mum's just concerned, Evan. And this house is kind of a mess. Your job isn't exactly secure either." That hit me like a punch to the gut. I've never flaunted my salary or career in front of her family, but I do fine. Sure, I got laid off last year, but I landed a new job within weeks. I thought she respected how hard I worked. "And what about the giggling?" I pressed. "When she was trashing our home, I wasn't laughing at you," she snapped. "I was laughing at something Tara said. Not everything's about you." But I saw her face. I know what I saw. We went to bed angry that night, backs turned away from each other, the air between us thick and heavy. The next morning things got weirder. Maya's phone kept buzzing. She angled it away from me every time she picked it up. Red flag #1. While looking for some paint in the garage, I heard her phone ring on the counter. The screen lit up with a name that made my blood run cold, Darren. Red flag #2. Later that day, I caught snippets of her talking on the phone in the bedroom. "I know, Mum. Yes, he's being difficult again. No, I haven't told him yet. I know the timing isn't great." Told me what? That night, Maya said she needed to go help her mum sort through baby clothes her cousin had dropped off. She didn't come home until after midnight. Red flag #3. The next morning, while Maya was showering, I did something I'm not proud of. I checked her phone, and what I found nearly made me sick. Dozens of texts between her and Cynthia, conversations about how Darren could offer a better life for the baby, about how this house isn't fit to raise a child, about how money will never be an issue if she made the right decision. And the worst, a message from Cynthia to Maya. Darren says the offer still stands. Think about the baby. Maya's reply, "I know, Mom. I'm thinking about it." I confronted her. It turned into the biggest, ugliest fight of our marriage. She stormed out, saying she was going to stay with her parents until I calmed down. That was 3 days ago. Since then, my phone hasn't stopped buzzing. 30-something missed calls. Messages from Maya. Messages from Cynthia. Voicemails I haven't had the strength to listen to. And then, last night, Tara showed up at my door, crying. What she told me about Maya and Cynthia's plans made me realize something horrifying. I don't even know who my wife is anymore. I let Tara inside. She was shaking, eyes red like she'd been crying for hours. We sat in the living room, the same room I'd spent days painting, sweating, trying to make perfect for a family that apparently thought I wasn't good enough. Tara didn't even bother easing into it. She just blurted out, "Evan, you need to know what they're planning." Turns out for the last 4 months, Cynthia had been meeting with Darren behind my back. Every week, planning, plotting, working on getting Maya to leave me before the baby even arrived. Cynthia had told their entire family that I was basically broke and unstable. She was telling people at her church too, laying the groundwork, planting little seeds of doubt about me wherever she could. But the real kick in the teeth? Darren isn't just Maya's ex. He's Cynthia's godson. His parents and Cynthia have been best friends for decades. They always wanted Darren and Maya to end up together. When Maya married me instead, Cynthia didn't just disapprove, she never accepted it. She just smiled fake smiles and bided her time. Tara showed me screenshots of a group chat between Cynthia, Darren and Maya. They weren't just talking about what ifs, they were house hunting together, looking for a place for Maya and the baby without me in the picture. Darren had even been making big deposits into Maya's private bank account. Money I had no idea about. Worse yet, they had an actual plan in place. As soon as the baby was born, Cynthia would help Maya file for emergency custody, claim I was unstable, that I couldn't provide, that I was a risk to the baby. They were going to lock me out of my own child's life before I ever got a chance to hold her. And the woman I thought I knew, the woman I married, was playing along with it. After Tara left, I sat there alone. For hours. No TV, no lights. Just me and the cold, gut-wrenching realization that my whole life had been a lie. The next morning, I called Noah, my oldest friend, one of the few people who knows me better than I know myself. I told him everything, the texts, the group chats, the deposits, the custody plan. Noah's advice was simple, but it hit like a hammer. Stop reacting. Start documenting. And that's exactly what I did. First, I went through our finances. Turned out Maya had been siphoning little bits of money out of our joint account for months. 100 here, 50 there. Tiny amounts, but it added up. Over $3,000 gone. Then I found emails between Maya and a realtor in Lakewood Hills. The fancy suburb Cynthia wouldn't shut up about. One email made my stomach turn. I want to make sure my daughter has the best start. Unlike what my husband had, I grew up poor. Trailer parks, hand-me-down shoes, the whole deal. I busted my ass to build a better life. And here Maya was, mocking it like it was something dirty. Later that day, I got a text from an unknown number. Man to man, you should know Maya's been unhappy for a long time. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Darren. I didn't reply. Just screenshotted it and added it to my growing pile of evidence. As if that wasn't enough, our sweet elderly neighbour, Miss S. Grant, came by that night. She brought a casserole and said, I just wanted you to have something to eat. Cynthia's been telling people you were abusive. I don't believe a word of it. You have kind eyes. That broke something in me. They weren't just trying to steal my daughter. They were trying to destroy my name. I wasn't sad anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. I set up an old laptop on the guest room desk, created a folder called Evidence, started saving everything. Screenshots, bank statements, text logs, emails, photos, even recordings of conversations I had with Tara and Miss S. Grant, just in case. While I was digging, I stumbled on something interesting. Cynthia's emails about a charity gala her church was hosting next month. Turns out she was the main organizer. She'd been running the charity fund for years, only the numbers didn't add up. Big discrepancies, missing funds, sketchy transactions, money that should have gone to help the community, lining Cynthia's pockets instead. The deeper I dug, the worse it got. Cynthia had even tried to pressure Maya's dad, poor, spineless Mr. Harrison, into taking out a second mortgage on their paid-off house to fund Darren's latest business venture. The man said no, and Cynthia threatened to ruin him with rumours of an affair that Tara swears never happened. This wasn't about me anymore. This wasn't just family drama. Cynthia was a full-blown villain. And she wasn't just coming after me, she was coming after my daughter. That's when everything clicked into place. Cynthia didn't just want control, she wanted a do-over. A new perfect family. Maya and Darren and the baby, all moulded into her ideal fantasy. And me, I was just a mistake she was trying to erase. Over my dead body. Noah and I spent the next few days laying low, gathering everything we could. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, moved my half of our joint savings over, froze our credit cards, changed all my passwords, and set up backups of everything to an external drive and a cloud folder. Meanwhile, Maya kept texting, calling, leaving voicemails, some sobbing, some angry, some desperate. I didn't answer, not a word. Finally, a few days later, I agreed to a short phone call. I told her she could come by with Tara to pick up some clothes. That was it. When she showed up, belly big, eyes puffy from crying, I barely recognized her. She begged, she pleaded. She said her mum had gone too far, that she had been confused, that she still loved me. I listened, silent, watching. Finally, I asked the only question that mattered. Is the baby mine, Maya? There was a pause, a beat too long. Then the tears really started. She swore up and down the baby was mine, said she couldn't believe I would even ask. But that hesitation, that tiny pause before she answered, it told me everything I needed to know. I told her, calmly, that I'd be requesting a paternity test. Period. The look on her face? Sheer horror. She left in a mess of sobs, Tara awkwardly ushering her out. I stood at the door, feeling nothing, no anger, no sadness, just this cold, clean certainty. Even if the baby was mine, and God, I hoped she was, Maya and I were done. As for Cynthia, She wasn't getting away with it. The revenge wasn't about payback anymore. It was about protecting my daughter from growing up under that woman's thumb. And it all started with that charity gala. I had a plan now, and this time I wasn't the one caught off guard. The morning after Maya left, I woke up to a Facebook notification. Someone had tagged me in a post. I couldn't see it. Turns out Cynthia had blocked me. But from Noah's screenshots it was clear. Cynthia was dragging my name through the mud, claiming I was unstable, that Maya and the baby weren't safe, that I had violent tendencies. It felt like watching a car crash you couldn't stop, except the car was my life. I didn't respond, didn't post, didn't text back. Instead, I kept my head down and kept collecting evidence. Because the gala was coming up, and Cynthia didn't even know the fire she'd walked into. Meanwhile, Maya came back a couple more times, with Tara always by her side. Each time she came, she was a little more desperate, a little more broken. She asked if we could fix it, if we could go to counselling, start fresh. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just asked if she was still in contact with Darren. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. By then, the paperwork for the paternity test was already filed. I told her point blank, once the baby was born, there'd be no guessing. We lived in the same house for a few awkward weeks. Strangers under one roof. I locked my bedroom door at night. I installed cameras, just in case. Meanwhile, Tara kept feeding me information from the inside. She gave me a flash drive one night, recordings she secretly took of conversations between Cynthia, Darren, and Maya. And what I heard on those tapes, it broke something in me for good. Cynthia laughing, saying, "Once the baby comes, we'll file for emergency custody. I have a friend at CPS who'll push it through." Darren, smug as hell, the idiot won't know what hit him. And Maya's voice, soft but clear, I just have to stick it out a few more weeks. After that, it'll be easier to make the break. The woman carrying my child, sitting in my home, planning to erase me like I was nothing. I saved those recordings in 4 different places. I wasn't going to lose. Not this time. The paternity test came back a few weeks later, after Olivia was born. And yeah, she's mine. The first time I held her, all the anger, all the cold, heavy bitterness, it faded. She opened her tiny eyes and looked up at me like I was her whole world. And in that moment, I made a promise. Nobody, not Cynthia, not Darren, not even Maya, was going to take her away from me. The night of the gala finally came. Cynthia showed up wearing a sparkling new dress, probably bought with stolen charity money, grinning like she owned the place. The church was packed. Business owners, politicians, reporters. Perfect. I didn't make a scene. I didn't crash the party. I just walked up to the head pastor before the awards ceremony and handed him a sealed envelope. Inside, bank statements showing Cynthia had been stealing from the church fund for years. Proof of the fake accounting. Screenshots of her blackmailing Maya's father. Audio recordings of her plotting to use CPS to rip a baby from her own father. I didn't stay to watch the fallout. Didn't need to. As I was walking out to my truck, I heard Cynthia's voice shrieking inside the church hall. It was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. By the next morning, it was all over town. Cynthia's Facebook disappeared. The church board called an emergency meeting. Police got involved. She had to sell her house to pay back the stolen money, over $70,000. The charity removed her name from everything. Her social circle dropped her like she had the plague. Her husband, Maya's dad, finally grew a spine and moved out. And Darren? He bailed too. Blocked Cynthia and Maya both. Turns out his business was a scam, and he'd been counting on Cynthia's money to save his sinking ship. Good riddance. Maya tried to come back, 8 months pregnant, standing on my porch, mascara running down her face. She begged me to forgive her, said she'd made a mistake, said she was scared. I didn't scream. I didn't slam the door. I didn't even raise my voice. I just told her the truth. You made your choice. Now you have to live with it. She stayed in the guest room until Olivia was born. After that, we worked out a custody plan. I kept the house. She moved into a small apartment nearby. We trade Olivia back and forth now. 3 days with me, 3 days with her. It's not perfect, but I'm there. I'm present. Nobody is taking my daughter away from me. Not ever. As for Cynthia, she texts me every now and then. Voicemails too, crying, begging to meet Olivia, promising she's changed. I don't respond. Not because I want revenge, but because some doors, once closed, stay closed. Miss S. Grant, our neighbour, still brings me casseroles sometimes. She saw me walking Olivia in her stroller last week, and she smiled and said, "She's got your eyes. Kind eyes." That meant more than she probably knew. Our backyard is still a patch of dirt. The kitchen's still outdated. The porch still creaks a little when it rains. But it's ours, mine and Olivia's. Every night, after bath time and story time, I rock her to sleep in the nursery I painted with my own hands. And every night, I know deep down, this is what home feels like. Real. Imperfect. But full of love. And no one, no matter how hard they tried, could take that from me. Story 3. You know that weird sixth sense you get when you walk into a room and everyone immediately stops talking? Yeah, that was the start of my Christmas this year. I pulled up to my mum's house at exactly 10 a.m, just like she asked. But from the moment I stepped in, I could tell I was late to a party I wasn't really invited to. The tree was bare under a mountain of already torn wrapping paper. Breakfast plates were being stacked. My brother, Ethan's son, Noah, was glued to his new Nintendo setup, not even glancing up. First warning sign, they didn't wait for me. This was supposed to be our first Christmas without Dad. He passed away in late October. It was like gravity itself had shifted slightly sideways, and nothing felt right. Mum hugged me when I came in, but it was off tight, almost guilty. Ethan's wife, Vanessa, barely looked up from her phone. "Oh, you made it," she muttered. Like I was some +1 no one remembered inviting. I set the gifts I'd brought under the tree, pretending not to notice. Bless Noah, though he actually seemed happy to see me. He dragged me over to show off his gaming hall. That moment didn't even last a full minute before Ethan cut in with a smirk. "Don't bother your Uncle Luke, buddy. He's too busy with whatever it is he does these days." The dig wasn't subtle. I've been working remotely for a tech company for a while now, living my best life, travelling, doing my own thing. Dad always said he admired that about me, even if it wasn't the standard path. Ethan, though, he's a real estate agent who's been clinging to that family man provider identity like a security blanket. Lately, with Dad gone, his passive-aggressive comments about my aimless lifestyle had gotten a whole lot less passive. I laughed it off. I always do. I sat down at the table, just as Mum brought out Dad's traditional Christmas roast, clearly forcing herself through the motions. The tension was a third guest at the table, uninvited but impossible to ignore. Vanessa set down her fork halfway through and, with a syrupy smile, asked, "So, Luke, any special someone in your life?" "Clock's ticking, you know. You don't want Noah growing up without cousins his age." I opened my mouth to answer, but Ethan beat me to it. "Oh, please," he said, chuckling. "Luke's too busy jetting off to random places. No wife, no kids, no real life." He laughed harder than the comment warranted. Mum smiled weakly. Even Noah looked uncomfortable. I felt the words hit like a slap but stayed quiet, chewing, swallowing, breathing. My life's pretty full, actually, I said finally, keeping my tone even. I'm happy. With what? Vanessa asked, head tilted like I was an exotic animal she couldn't quite understand. With work? Hotel rooms? Come on, that's not living, you're just existing. Her words hung in the air like smoke. I set my fork down carefully. Don't tell me what Dad would have wanted, I said, my voice low. Sharper than I intended, but not wrong. Mum fumbled to change the subject, talking about New Year's plans. But Ethan wasn't done. He leaned forward. We need to be realistic, Luke. The will's being read next week. And, well, you're sitting on a lot of money, no dependents, no responsibilities. Meanwhile, we're raising a child, trying to give him a good life. There it was. The real reason for the sudden family concern about my wasted life. I looked around. Mum wouldn't meet my eyes. Vanessa was practically beaming. Ethan leaned back, like he'd just won a debate no one else was even aware was happening. What exactly do you mean by realistic? I asked. Mum finally spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Sweetheart, they needed a little help. For Noah's schooling, the house, renovations your father said he'd help with. I felt something inside me go very, very still. What did you do? I asked, even though I already knew. Mum wrung her hands. Vanessa jumped in, voice chipper. We borrowed, Luke. Against your part of the inheritance. You have savings. We have a family. Borrowed. As if that made it better. I looked at Mum. You let them take from my inheritance without asking me. It's not like you were going to use it responsibly, Ethan said, his voice rising. You don't even have a real life. No one counting on you. No one who matters. Everyone at the table nodded along. Even Mum. Except Noah, who just stared down at his plate, fidgeting with the hem of his sweater. I stood up, calm, measured. Thanks for lunch, Mum, I said, sliding my chair back. Don't be dramatic, Vanessa snapped. But I was already at the door, pulling on my jacket. I didn't slam it behind me, didn't shout, didn't cry. Just walked to my car, hands steady. Heart colder than the December air. By the time I got home, my phone was lighting up like a Christmas tree. Texts, missed calls, mostly from Mum. Please don't make this worse. We're family. We'll figure it out. One from Ethan. Grow up, Luke. Face reality. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I called Dad's lawyer and left a message. Tomorrow, I was going to find out exactly what they did. Because my father trusted me to take care of this family, and apparently that meant protecting them from themselves too. The next morning, I showed up at Mr. Hayward's office, Dad's lawyer, a gruff, no-nonsense guy who always wore the same brown tweed jacket and had a stare like he could see right through you. He didn't seem surprised to see me. "Come on in, Luke," he said, already pulling out a thick manila folder. That alone told me everything I needed to know he'd been expecting this fallout. We sat down, and he slid the folder toward me. Your father left instructions. He had a feeling there might be complications. I opened the folder and felt my stomach drop. There were loan documents, withdrawal slips, papers with my signature on them. Only the signatures were shaky, sloppy, not mine. They forged my name? I asked, flipping through the pile. 6 different times, Hayward said, his voice calm. Over the last year, each one tapping into your trust fund. I just stared. It didn't even feel real yet. How much? I managed to ask. He pushed a sheet toward me. The number at the bottom made my hands go cold. $287,000. Almost 300 grand. Gone. I leaned back in my chair, pressing the heels of my palms against my eyes. They didn't even bother to be good at it, I said. More to myself than to him. Mr. Hayward gave a small, humourless smile. Desperation makes people sloppy. He pulled out another document, one that looked newer. "This," he said, tapping it, "is the real will, updated 2 weeks before your father passed." I looked at him. "He changed it?" Hayward nodded. "Your father found out Ethan and Vanessa were already trying to leverage his declining health for loans. He moved fast once he realised what they were up to." The updated will had a lot of legal jargon, but one thing was very clear. Any unauthorised borrowing had to be repaid in full before any inheritance was distributed. "And Dad named me as the executor of that repayment plan. They can't touch a cent," Hayward said, "until they pay it all back, and you're the one who gets to oversee it." I sat there for a second, just absorbing it. Dad hadn't been naive after all. He'd seen it. All of it. Hayward wasn't done, though. "There's more," he said, pulling out a smaller folder. I braced myself. Apparently, last month, right before Christmas, Ethan had tried to file a petition to have me declared financially irresponsible. If it had gone through, he would have gained control of my trust, my inheritance, everything. It all clicked into place. The fake concern over my irresponsible lifestyle, the pointed digs, the timing. They weren't just being judgmental, they were setting me up. While Hayward explained the legal mess, my phone buzzed non-stop in my pocket. At the first break in the conversation, I checked. 30 missed calls, 18 voicemails. Texts from Mum, Ethan, Vanessa. Some of the gems: "You're being selfish. Christians, Noah's future depends on this. We're a family. Families forgive. You're ruining everything." The only message that stopped me cold was from Noah. "Uncle Luke, I'm sorry about Christmas. I don't think what they said about you was right. Kid's only 12, but he sees more clearly than half the adults." I set the phone down and looked back at Hayward. "What now?" He shrugged. "That's up to you. Your father left you the tools. The question is, are you willing to use them?" Before I left, Hayward handed me one last piece of paper. Dad's final note. It wasn't long. "Just a few lines, Luke. If you're reading this, they pushed too far. I know you'll do what's right. Stand your ground. Check the old house. Garage. Bottom shelf behind the paint cans. There's more you'll need. Love you, Dad." I folded the note carefully and tucked it into my jacket pocket. On the drive to the old house, Mom's house now, I kept replaying everything in my head. The years Ethan acted like he was Dad's golden boy. The way Mum always smoothed things over. The dozens of little slights I told myself didn't matter. Turns out they mattered. Turns out Dad had seen it too. Nobody was home when I got to the house. The garage smelled like old wood, gasoline, and sawdust, exactly how it had when I was a kid. Behind the paint cans, just like Dad said, was a small fireproof safe. Combination lock. I didn't even hesitate. Punched in my birthday. The safe popped open. Inside, 3 USB drives. A thick ledger notebook. Another sealed letter. The ledger made my heart race. It detailed every loan Ethan had taken over the years. Not just from me, but from Dad too. Hundreds of thousands. Some legit. Most not even close. Dad had documented everything. The USBs were backup scans, emails, even voice memos where Ethan tried to manipulate Dad into signing paperwork when he was barely conscious in the hospital. The letter? It was Dad again. Handwritten. "Son, they'll try to use guilt. They'll say you're selfish. Don't believe it. True responsibility means doing what's right, not what's easy. You have everything you need to protect yourself and help them see the consequences of their choices. Be strong. You were always stronger than you thought." I sat there on the cold cement floor, the safe open beside me. my heart pounding in my ears. Tomorrow, they were meeting at Mum's house. They thought they were going to corner me, pressure me, guilt me into handing everything over. Instead, tomorrow, they were going to find out who they were really dealing with. I packed up the ledger, the drives, the letter. Made copies of everything. Dropped one set off with Hayward, just to be safe. My phone buzzed again. A text from Noah, "Are you coming tomorrow? I hope you do. Someone needs to tell the truth." I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I texted back, "I'll be there." The next morning, I pulled up to Mom's house a little early. The driveway was packed. Ethan's truck, Vanessa's SUV, and two more cars I didn't recognize right away. Backup, huh? I walked up slow, calm. Had the ledger tucked in my messenger bag. The USB drives in my pocket. Dad's letter felt like a shield under my jacket. When I stepped inside, it hit me. They weren't here to apologize. They were here for a full-on ambush. Mum was wringing her hands by the fireplace, looking like she wanted to melt into the bricks. On the couch, Vanessa sat perched and perfect, like she was in a job interview. Ethan was pacing. Next to them, Aunt Marla, Dad's sister, and some financial guy in a cheap suit, probably hired muscle to scare me with big words. "Good, you're here," Ethan said, like he owned the place. Noah wasn't there, probably sent off to avoid the adult conversation. I walked in, dropped my bag beside Dad's old recliner and sat down in it. Felt right. Ethan cleared his throat. "We've been talking," he said, gesturing to the room. "And we think it's best if we, restructure things." He slid a printed document across the coffee table toward me. I didn't touch it. The financial guy started talking about managing assets more effectively and relieving strain on the family unit. Translation, they wanted immediate access to their inheritance and control over mine. Temporarily, of course. For the good of the family, always for the good of the family. I let them talk. Didn't interrupt once. When they finally ran out of buzzwords, I leaned forward, slow and steady, and pulled the ledger from my bag. "Before we talk about that," I said, my voice even, "let's go over the Mountain View property." Silence. Vanessa stiffened. Ethan's jaw twitched. Aunt Marla suddenly found her coffee very interesting. "The rental units Dad bought when he retired," I continued, flipping the ledger open. "Fully paid off. Supposed to be Mum's safety net." Ethan blustered. "That's irrelevant, is it?" I asked, cutting him off. "Because according to this," I tapped a page with my finger, "you took out a second mortgage on it 8 months ago, using Mum's power of attorney. While Dad was in the hospital." Mum gasped. Actually gasped. She turned to Ethan. "Tell me that's not true." Ethan opened his mouth. Closed it. Vanessa jumped in. "It was temporary," she said quickly. "An investment opportunity to normal." I flipped another page. "Normal investments don't end with properties in pre-foreclosure, Vanessa." Mum sat down hard on the ottoman, like her knees gave out. Her voice cracked. "The units, your father and I bought those for retirement. You mortgaged my home?" Neither Ethan nor Vanessa said a word. The financial guy stood up and quietly packed his papers away. Guess he realized the storm was coming and wanted no part of it. I wasn't finished. "Let's talk about the credit cards in Mum's name," I said, pulling out the folder Hayward had prepped. "The ones you opened without her permission." Ethan's face turned a dangerous shade of red. Vanessa shot to her feet. "You sanctimonious little," she started. But before she could finish, a small voice interrupted from the stairs. "Is it true about my college fund?" We all turned. Noah stood halfway down, clutching his phone in both hands, his face pale. "Honey, go upstairs," Vanessa snapped. "No," Noah said, his voice trembling. "I heard everything. I recorded it too." He looked at me. Uncle Luke, you weren't lying, Ethan exploded. This is family business. You don't. Enough, I said quietly. One word, sharp enough to cut the air. Noah sat down on the bottom step, still recording. I turned back to Ethan and Vanessa. Here's what's going to happen, I said, pulling out the final document. Dad's real will, the repayment plan. You're signing a legally binding agreement today. Immediate trust management on the Mountain View units to stop the foreclosure, full cancellation of any credit tied to Mum's name. Noah's college fund gets frozen in a protected account. Only he can access it when he turns 18. Vanessa opened her mouth to argue, but I cut her off. And you, I said, staring straight at Ethan, start mandatory financial counselling. Weekly. Non-negotiable. And if we don't? Ethan spat. I smiled. Then I take the evidence, every forged signature, every fraudulent loan, and walk it straight to the police. Simple. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Even Mum just sat there, hollowed out, tears quietly streaming down her face. Then Noah spoke up again. Dad, just sign it, he said, voice shaking. Please, don't make it worse. In the end, Vanessa signed first. Then Ethan, hand trembling so badly, it took him 3 tries to get his name right. It was over. At least the formal part. I left soon after. No more long goodbyes. No more pretending we were the family we should have been. Later that night, the texts started coming in. Ethan, you'll regret this. Vanessa, you're selfish and jealous. Mom, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't know. I'm so sorry. The only message I answered was Noah's. Thank you, Uncle Luke. Epilogue, some things you can't fix, and that's okay. It's been a few weeks since all that happened. The Mountain View property is safe now. Mum's retirement is secure. Noah's trust fund is locked down tighter than Fort Knox. As for Ethan and Vanessa, turns out when you stop stealing money and propping up bad decisions, everything falls apart real quick. The foreclosure notice on their house went public. Ethan's reputation in town took a nosedive. The financial advisor? Turns out he knew about the sketchy mortgage and turned over all his notes to the authorities. They're facing a full investigation now. Noah's staying with me for a while. His choice. We're figuring it out, one day at a time. Video games, bad takeout, awkward heart-to-hearts. It's messy, but it's real. And you know what? For the first time in a long time, I'm not just floating through life. I'm building something solid, something honest. Dad would have been proud. I can feel it in my bones. They said I had no life. Funny thing is, turns out I was the only one who really knew how to live.